Lawful Good is about as cool as bringing donuts to a bulimia support group. If the alignments were people at a party, Lawful Good would be in the corner editing the Battlestar Galactica wiki, while Lawful Evil snorted coke off of Chaotic Neutral's fun bags. It can be fun to watch Lawful Good heroes maintain order in TV and film, but Dungeons & Dragons is a game of fantasy escapism where you can explore fantastic, barely believable worlds where magic powers, flying ships, and Kender aren't killed on sight. Some players use that escape as a chance to thumb their noses at authority also. This can cause problems with Lawful Good players who then find themselves acting as the gatekeepers of fun.
Put that back! Don't fleece the locals! Stop torturing that goblin!
Now, I've only played 2 Lawful Good characters, but both times it ended in disaster. I don't believe any party of good-aligned adventurers should let a player get away with murder, but if the group needs to steal the Sword of Dragon Slaying from the snobbish a-hole museum, you don't need Pendleton Brightballs crying about how stealing is wrong. Besides, once the dragon burns down the museum, we can buy the salvage rights from the town council. Because being lawful doesn't mean you have a higher morality than someone who is chaotic. It just means you're more willing to submit to authority. And when the authority is wise and just, it's morally justified to follow it. But following an authority that's cruel and short-sighted, well, that's not so good. I always wondered what it would be like to play in a party that was made up entirely of Lawful Good characters. You know, having everyone on the same page in terms of right and wrong would make it easy for the group to come to consensus quickly and minimize any debates about the right course of action. I pitched this idea to my DM and he went for it. The first day of play, we all found out who we'd be playing. I was one of 2 elven knights, heirs to the throne and protectors of an ancient noble bloodline. There was an elven cleric who was an up-and-comer in the church's hierarchy, and there was a court jester who picked pockets and farted on things. Apparently some nobleman needed to hide his love child at court, and that love child was our court jester. We weren't sure if his ability to juggle comically oversized chainsaws was going to be all that helpful in our quest, but we took him along anyway since he was a player character and all. Oh, and in case you're wondering, the court jester was not lawful. He was so not lawful. Normally, I wouldn't care at all. In fact, I had played a goofy bard in the last campaign we had, and I may have ruined the atmosphere of a tense or scary moment a time or 10, but we were supposed to be trying something new here, a completely lawful party. Now our game of real intrigue was devolving into an episode of Family Matters. The Jester was a home-brewed class created by my dungeon master, and this was the game he chose to give it a test run in. The class was called the Jongleur, or Juggler, as we say in American. It was essentially a reverse bard. Where bards could buff your attack and damage values by singing, a juggler would lower those values by juggling knives around. You see, the fast-flying blades would intimidate enemies and put them off balance. Now you may ask how anyone could be scared of watching Penn and Teller open for Santana in a world where flesh-eating ghouls don't cause fear penalties, and the answer is, of course, magic. On paper, this sounds like a fine idea, but in play had some issues. The fact was, the Jester class, while based on the Bard, was much less effective than a Bard. Less effective than a Bard club is a pretty exclusive club you don't want to be a member of. You see, a Bard on his last hit point can hide himself away and still lend a song bonus to his party, but the Juggler class always has to be in danger when using his debuff, as it only works on enemies that can see the Juggler and are within 30 feet of him. Unlike the superior Bard song, which can typically affect every ally on the battle map. Juggler debuffs also don't work in darkness or on any creatures too dumb to realize that flying knives are a threat. Now, bards can't lend their bonuses to those types of creatures either, but that hardly matters because how often do you dungeon crawl with a party of giant wasps? The Juggler has one advantage over the bard. They can use their debuff ability and still make attacks, but at best that means throwing or slashing a dagger for 1d4 damage plus whatever piddly strength bonus you gave your dex-based character. But you could always take a level of rogue and at least get that extra backstab damage. That's something I recommend bards do in Pathfinder or 3.5 anyway, to get all those lowly starting skill points, backstab damage, and being able to disarm magical traps. All of that will make your bard much more effective. No, I'm not saying every character needs to be optimized, but the Juggler is essentially a support character that only works on the front line. It's like having a liver that can only make bile when it's slapped against the face of a drunken biker, and that might explain why our Juggler was turned into pate every fight. We were trying to stop a military coup which was led by a rival family of elven nobility nobility. Our castle was swarmed by elven archers who stayed out of the juggler's area of effect and dagger range, and shot him full of arrows every single fight. Within the first hour of play, our cleric had blown through all of his healing spells, putting the juggler back together. I'm sure it didn't help matters any that the juggler's player was new. Being a new player with an untested character class is like taking your pilot's license exam in an experimental aircraft.
Mayday, mayday, we're going down!
That campaign only lasted 1 or 2 sessions. I don't want to say that the Jester's inclusion ruined the game, but I think it was probably the biggest element that caused the group to lose interest in it. Maybe Jesters just aren't that amusing after all. As always, you can visit us on Facebook. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider making a donation to my GoFundMe campaign. The links for both are in the description below. As always, thanks for watching.